Hello students, welcome to Chandigarh Civil Service Academy. So UPSC Civil Service Prelims 2023 paper is over. Now we'll be decoding sectional distribution of questions as well as detailed analysis of all the sections which have been asked in UPSC Prelims. So I'm Dr. Vivek Rana. I'll be decoding science and tech and environment section in this first lecture. So we'll be decoding which section dominated and which section could have been comparatively asked more. So as we have discussed, there are 16 questions from science and technology, including general science, and there are 12 questions from environment and ecology. So if you have done this section well, so you can say 1/3 paper is in your hold. So without wasting any time, let's start our with first question. So as you can see on your screen, the first question is from environment and ecology. So we are taking up the D section set of the paper. So the questions or sequential order would be as per the D set. So the first statement says that Biodiversity Management Committee are key to realization of objectives of Nagoya Protocol. So basically this is a question from Biodiversity Act 2002. We know it's the most, you could say, the signal legislation which has helped in conserving biodiversity, and there are three tiers of institutions which were created. There was at central level there were National Biodiversity Authority, at state level there were state you could say biodiversity committees, and the third were BMCs, Biodiversity Management Committees. So Nagoya Protocol deals with access and benefit sharing, and the crux of Biodiversity Act is to have equitable and fair share of benefits rising from use of genetic resources. So the first statement is definitely correct. The second statement says the Biodiversity Management Committee, that once again the third tier institution, has important functions in determining once again the ABS principle, access and benefit sharing, which holds true, and including the power to levy collection fees, because without having sufficient funds, there is always a grievance that how we will implement the decisions, how will we maintain the people's biodiversity registers. So answer of this question is both 1 and 2. Coming to the second question from the set D. This one is from science and tech section, or you could say general science section. So in 2022 and 23 phase, there was spurt of vector-borne diseases. We had cases of chikungunya, and dengue was something which dominated headlines. Now, dengue and chikungunya both are viral diseases, but they are also example of vector-borne diseases. In both the cases, it was Aedes aegypti mosquito, which is popularly known as tiger mosquito, was the culprit, and this method deals with the similar theme. So Wolbachia method, even though it was not too obvious in news, only isolated articles related to research while covering these vector-borne diseases has mentioned about this bacteria which has tendency to grow in all sorts of living organisms, and this method, if applied properly, can be one of the means to control the spurt of vector-borne diseases. So this one is if it's a hit or miss question. If you have covered this current affairs somewhere, then you would have idly attempted. Otherwise, only the guesswork would have helped, because all other options are relatively not too directly related to diseases. There is one related to biodegradable plastic, even though this theme was also in current affairs. Then biochar was asked a couple of years back in UPSC, and packaging material was also something in news. So even though all four themes were in news, but this one was predominantly more and directly dealt with the disease part, because in every UPSC paper there is one question which is reserved from the disease section. Moving to question number 3. Now this is one of the emerging technologies which we all are catering to, because the recent COP summits have clearly highlighted the need for carbon sequestration and carbon sinks being the way forward. But there are means by which we can reduce the atmospheric carbon dioxide into something useful. So in such question, generally they are testing your temperament, whether you are aware of broad set of things or you are just narrowing down to afforestation or reforestation drive. So here the all given three method, use of basalt, including the increasing the alkalinity of ocean by adding lime, because that's the compound which sequesters, and we have seen how bicarbonate shells in the marine ecosystems play a role. And on third one was once again in news that how we are, this is the correct example of carbon sequestration. A lot of articles carried this article as well. So out of given three combinations, all three are correct. So once again, the golden rule of picking the all options correct holds true in this question. Now question number 4 and 5 deals with the genomics part, and even though this term was not exactly covered in our class lectures, the aerial metagenomics, but if you have gone through biotech's first lecture, the genome word is clearly highlighted that it deals with the study of human or any other organism's DNA, and currently the genomics and eugenomics terms are in use. And more importantly, the Nobel Prize of 2020 22, which was announced in medicine and physiology, went to Swedish Pabo, who had decoded the evolution of hominids, and this is more or less the next to this one, and another question are related to the similar theme. So collecting DNA samples from air in habitat and Wanbu is related to the metagenesis. The two options which could have been eliminated were drones and the use of airborne devices, even though the B option comes close because it has word mentioned genetic and avian. Someone might have linked it with the aerial word. So if you have made this mistake, it's acceptable one. Otherwise, the A option was the perfect option in this given question. Now coming to microsatellite DNA, once again, just I have highlighted in the last question, anything dealing with DNA and having microsatellite angle, these are some sequence of nitrogen bases which are decoded for matching the species and gauging their evolution from the historical ancestors. So once again, it's related to the Nobel Prize discovery, because Pabo had discovered how Neanderthal man and other hominids have evolved, and how the variation and diversity is existing among different species. So basically, once again, the evolutionary angle among different species of fauna means animals, they have been highlighted. Otherwise, the other themes are once again from science and tech, stem cells, cloning, and you could say the drug trials in a population. So if you have even minor information about this theme, you could have made an educated guess. Otherwise, if you have not attempted, it's a bit a technical question from current affairs. It's more or less acceptable. Now coming to question number 6, this is related to schemes. Just like in economics, we have plethora of schemes being asked. Even in science and tech environment also, at times we see a couple of schemes being asked. So this year they have choose Anaemia Mukt Bharat Strategy, which is a flagship scheme of central government to target the iron deficiency anemia. So as you can see in the first option, they have tested basic biology. Once again, this question can be considered under the basic biology current affair, because anemia, there are basically multiple forms. Most common is the iron deficiency anemia. Apart from that, there are nutritional deficiency vitamin anemia related to, like folic acid causes megaloblastic anemia, vitamin B12 causes pernicious anemia. So the government is supplying iron, B12, folate supplements, not the calcium. Calcium, even though it's important, required for bones and teeth. Rest of the options more or less related to nutritional deficiency, addressing the deworming in children's as well as load cord clamping at childbirth can be considered. So you have to eliminate the first one, and the best probable option becomes only 3. Coming to the next domain, once again from science and tech, it can be considered either from nanotechnology, because we do carbon nanotubes, fibers there, while discussing the majority applications of nanotechnology. Apart from few exceptions, all are majority based on carbon, and the basic advantage is that they are biodegradable, they have high tensile strength, good electrical and thermal conductivity, and high shear strength as well. Or you can say it's a applied part of general science, in which allotropy part of carbon is being asked, in which we cover diamond, graphite, graphene, Buckminster fluorine, and carbon nanotubes. So it's as per the discussion of examiner. So the first part deals with the application. This was mentioned in our lectures as well, that carbon fibers are revolutionizing automobile as well, as because of their lightweight and good strength properties. Similar way, the most evolved aircraft, 5th generation as well as 4th generation aircraft, are being strengthened by similar fibers. Even the stealth technology more or less indirectly is involved with these fibers. So the first option is correct. The second one, once used cannot be recycled, is the wrong one. There are 4 specific techniques, even though they are technical, through which these materials can be easily recycled. So they are environmentally friendly, as we had highlighted in lectures as well. These are biodegradable in nature. So the property of being recycled helps in giving them a clean tag. So more or less, you have to eliminate the second one. Answer is 1 only. Now the next is the emerging technology, and this one is an out-of-box theme because we had not covered it in our class lectures, neither we had covered it in our current affair theme. So this one is left to your own applied mind. And if you have heard about what accelerator, accelerometer, vibrator, sensor are all about, then you could have easily guessed. And more or less in most of the science and tech question, when they are asking about new emerging technology, the answers are all of the above. So in even this question, we have seen that the collision of car glass is a sensitive one, so vibration send them and airbag comes out, and that turns out to be life-saving in some major accidents. Similar way, a laptop, if accidentally fallen, you can see the similar vibration helps in turning off the hard drive and saves your important data from being crashed. And the third one, which is more practical, all of you are using mobile gadgets. You see, whenever you tilt the mobile, even immediately the mode shifts from portrait to landscape mode. So it's movement of your hand. The accelerator sensor is so sensitive that it immediately gauges and turns the screen. So basically the answer is once again the all three. Coming to question number 9. Now this is the aquaponics question, in which they have asked about the use of biofilters. We have seen that currently the systems being evolved in which in upper part we grow plants, and then there is a channel through which lower chamber fishes are being trained. So advantage, this aquaponics techniques combine hydroponics as well as the fishery part, and so it's a double benefit to the person who is raising this culture. And also there is an advantage that some organisms which are served as biofilters, some lower organisms, help in circulation of nutrients. They help in adding the nitrates which are taken by plants as well as the phosphate to which plant prospers, because this waste being passed through these aquatic fishes is being channeled as a fertilizer for them. So in this way, we can say that option number 1 and 3 are 2 and 3 are directly related to this theme. And even though this may not be the best option, but still we can consider that they help in removing the dead bodies by acting a role of a scavenger decomposer, because some of the aquatic microorganisms help in decomposing, and then once again the circulation of their waste helps is maintained in the aquatic system. So answer is once again all three. Coming to question number 10. Now, which of the following countries has its own satellite navigation system? Now, we have covered in our space segment the navigation satellite applications while covering the IRNSS system or the NAV. Now, India has indigenized the technology while we have our 7 satellites and 1 ground station to make that operational. So while that current affair was coming, a lot of times you could say the global comparison was also coming in the newspapers. So we know the USA has GPS, Russia has GLONASS, China has Baidu, European Union has Galileo, while Japan has Quasi-SEN. So you have to see that there was no mention of Australia, Canada and Israel. Only these countries which are highlighted in the class lecture had their own navigation satellite, which highlights the indigenization of technology. So this one was a comparatively easy question in the science and tech section. Now the next question is from defense section, because from science and tech we have seen that they have only biotech section has couple of questions and emerging technology. Otherwise from nanotech there is a single question, from space there is a single question. Now from defense also there is a single question. So they want the exhaustive coverage of all sections qualitatively, only then you would be in position to do justice. If you have just covered the defense section or some only biotech section, then the science and tech section can be a tricky one for you. But we have covered all these sections, so hopefully you would have managed more or less the expected, you could say the 50 or 60% accuracy which is required to crack this exam. So coming to the defense missile part, ballistic and Agni are the two themes, and apart from that the BrahMos was in limelight because of some accidental as well as so good reasons, because BrahMos became the first missile to be exported to Philippines, which is part of Act East policy. Now here they have tried to confuse ballistic and cruise missiles technology. Now ballistic are not jet propelled, they are rocket based. As you could recollect in our class lecture, we had highlighted that Agni, Prithvi all had multiple stages, fuel stages, and it was a rocket which was being carried to outer space and then it used to fall and cause destruction. Whereas cruise missiles were jet propelled, they used to travel close to surface and at subsonic speed. Eventually, when they used to approach the target, it used to attain supersonic speed. So the first statement is wrong, and the second statement is a quite a blunder one, because they have mentioned Agni 5 as medium range. So ideally, Agni till Agni 4 are intermediate range, and Agni 5 is a milestone in Indian missile system. It was the first intercontinental missile to be developed, and it helped India in entering intercontinental ballistic missile group. And moreover, cruise word is wrong, because Agni, Prithvi, all such missiles are ballistic in nature. And then BrahMos Indo-Russian joint venture, which is an example of the cruise missile, they have mentioned ballistic and used the word intercontinental, which is once again a blunder, because in BrahMos we have seen the range varies from 290 to 450 kilometers, because cruise missiles are more or less line of sight type of missiles, whereas Agni we are mainly used for destruction purpose, even though the both are capable of delivering nuclear warheads. So this one, I hope you have managed it once again. And coming to the mercury pollution, we have seen the all sorts of water pollution being covered, like from cadmium, arsenic, fluoride, and mercury. Minamata is the evergreen topic which they asked, but this time they have not specifically asked about Minamata or the nervous system being involved. They have asked about the which of the following the statements are correct. So gold mining, coal-based thermal plants, these two are also associated in mercury level pollution, apart from the obvious one, the amalgam, or which we cover in our class, the thermometer or other things. And still, in spite of so much advancement in science, there is no known safe level of exposure to mercury. That's why Minamata Convention emphasizes that we should sooner or later substitute the dependence on mercury, and we have seen already in dentistry amalgam being replaced by composites, and we have seen thermal scanners substituting the conventional mercury thermometers. Will still be a long way to go. So once again, the golden rule of picking the all three, all those who have taken risk in this question would have get their dividends. Now, green hydrogen is emerging technology which can be covered in science and tech as well as the environment section. So there were a lot of articles, because green hydrogen mission is underway. So this question was more or less doable by most of majority of students. It is used as a fuel combustion engine, just like the gasolines are being blended with ethanol. This hydrogen gas can be blended with natural gas. So and the third one, that in the it can be used as hydrogen fuel cell. This is also emerging thing, because green hydrogen is nothing but a hydrogen produced from electrolysis of water using renewable energy instead of the conventional fossil fuel. So basically they are just testing your risk taking abilities, and once again that golden principle of all three holds true in this question as well. Now coming to another question on green hydrogen, once again they have asked about the heavy industries, fertilizer, oil, steel, because all are dependent on, you could say, fossil fuel for energy generation. So green hydrogen is expected to play significant role, because already it is giving a tough competition, and government's vision is to help in reducing these core industries or the heavy industries reliance on fossil, because there are multiple reports which clearly highlight that heavy industries are the main contributor to greenhouse effect, and it's impertinent to substitute them with renewable energy. So once again you have to pick all three. So we are not finding any questions apart from the all three options in this particular section. Now this one is a little bit tough question, but still, if you have a basic understanding of science and course part, elimination method could have helped you in cracking. Otherwise, it's for humanities student, it might be some out of box question. They've asked about ilmenite and rutile, that which of the following are rich sources of which one of the following. If you recollect aluminium, we conventional in GS lectures we covered the bauxite is the main ore of aluminium, Al2O3. Copper has cuprite as well as copper pyrite as the main ores. In iron we have hematite, magnetite, siderite, limonite as the four ores, and it only leaves with titanium, which is a strategic metal useful in plethora of industries, and the government is keen in mining titanium wherever it is available. So this is a strategic resource, and these two are the ores which are associated with the titanium. Now coming to the cobalt part, once again this we had covered exhaustively in our class lecture while discussing the topic challenges in adopting e-vehicle technology in India. So apart from the lithium ion battery, or you could say charging infrastructure bottlenecks, or we could say China's competitive edge, this is about the resource like cobalt, nickel, and lithium being required if we want to excel or want that India to be next Detroit of e-vehicles. So currently, China has already secured because over 60% cobalt is with the Democratic Republic of Congo. So this one is the option which you had to pick, and this was once again an easy nut to crack if you have attended that particular theme. Now coming to the carbon market theme, while discussing Kyoto Protocol, the carbon credit theme, emission trading, the joint implementation and clean development mechanism, we give you idea how carbon markets operate. So saying that carbon markets are likely to be most widespread tool for fight against climate change is a desirable option, because currently also in Paris Agreement Article 6 deals with the carbon markets, and this has been the sticking point between developing and developed countries in fight against climate change. So there's no harm in exaggerating to say that this is going to be the key cornerstone about carbon fight. And to say that carbon market transfer resources from private to state is not technically correct, because it's the formal industrialized states, or you could say countries, which are negotiating at the global level under the ambit of UNFCCC. And even though some companies are also involved, but to say to take resources from private to government is not one of the best options. So we can say you have to eliminate the second option, and the first one holds true. Coming to the next one, 18th question. It's deal with the nuclear energy, and this theme we had discussed. The first statement says that India, despite having uranium deposits, because they have never not highlighted that India is having largest reserve or is the major place, they are just mentioning about having uranium deposit, which is clear because in multiple states, right from Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, parts of, you could say, Jharkhand and Northeast have uranium reserve, even though India has rich reserves of thorium at monazite sand. So some students might get confused that it should have been thorium, why they have mentioned uranium. But the second part is once again correct, says that depends on coal for most of its energy production. Despite being a front runner in renewable energy production of late, still more than 50% of energy is being generated through coal or these gas-based plants. Even though India has an ambitious vision of transforming itself into 50% renewable energy by 2030 SDG here. So first statement can be picked. The second statement said uranium enriched to extent of at least 60% is required for production of electricity. Now this one is not technically correct option, because we have discussed in our class lecture that there are three basic variants of uranium. There is a low enriched uranium, high enriched uranium, and highly enriched uranium. Now low enriched uranium means that when you have enriched uranium by 5 to 6%. Highly enriched uranium means when you have enriched uranium 235 isotope from 238 to almost 90%, which is totally prohibited under the nuclear proliferation treaty. So the second statement is wrong. So out of this given option, the C option technically is the one of the best option, because it says that first statement is correct, second is incorrect. Even though it would have been a lot better if they had mentioned having the thorium deposit, or you should just mentioned India has some deposits, because a lot of ambiguity might have been created in minds of some aspirants. Now coming to environment ecology, or you could say the bio part, the marsupial word is discussed only in the animal kingdom lecture, and we highlight that Australia is the mainland for marsupial species, because these are evolutionary, you could say, the intermediate between prototherians and eutherians. Marsupial means the species which have marsupial pouch to carry their young ones, like kangaroo and koala bear. Kangaroo has in frontal surface and koala bear has it back. So marsupials are geographically, you could say, currently isolated only to the main Australian mainland, because it has enough resources, and due to that continental drift theory, this is the one region which has, you could say, uneven distribution. It tilted in favor of Australia. So first statement you can say is correct. The second option says they thrive only. Generally in UPSC question, when they mention about extreme statement, rarely are they correct. So to say that Australia is just montane grassland is going to be exaggeration. This is quite an adaptable species, and its number is quite thriving as well. So to say only in mountain is wrong. It is present in scrubland, grassland, conventional grasslands as well, typically savanna type. And with no predator, even though its main predator Tasmanian devil is no more still, but you have dingo as well as the other wild dogs which are hunting, and other carnivores which at times attack this koalas as well as the other marsupial species. So you have to choose that first statement is correct, the second one is wrong. So this was once again a question which was framed in context of zoology. Coming to question number 20. Now every year we see some questions being asked from international organizations. So this year they have asked about invasive species specialist group. So out of these two, you have to see the only major formal or international group which is evolved in 1948 and is predominant playing decisive role in especially the role of conservation of flora and fauna is the IUCN. Every year it releases a red data book where it highlights the threat posed by the various ornamental invasive species. So answer is the A option. So coming to the next one, this one is long-tailed macaque has been one of the favorite species of UPSC. Already couple of times this species have been asked in previous year UPSC prelims. So this year is no exception. Now this time they have asked you about nocturnal. So they emphasized in our class lecture what are diurnal and nocturnal species while discussing rod and cone cells, are also in basic ecology and animal kingdom lecture. So any animal which is active during night time is called nocturnal while daytime are called diurnal. So in given case, you could say Malabar civet, which is a cat species which at times is in news, is a you could say nocturnal species. In night time only you come across, when you are trespassing in some village or Sukna, you will come across a large deer species which is called Sambar. And long-tailed macaque, if you have visited Chhatbir Zoo, you can see it's active because it's a monkey. Monkey and apes most of the time are active during the, you could say, daytime, their highest potential and efficiency. So you have to eliminate long-tailed macaque. So answer is A, you could say B option, only two. Now, which of the following are called waggle dance? So once again, this is from zoology section, and you have to understand that honeybees colony, the you could say workers are associated with tail and waggle dance. These are symptoms. There are sense pheromones through which they reach to the potential flowering site and reach back to their hive. So this one is tilted in favor of zoology students. So even if you have not attempted this is perfectly acceptable. Coming to the next general science part, they have asked about mushrooms which fall under domain of fungi. So if you know ecological significance of fungi, how are they being used in multiple industries, then this question would have been easy to attempt. Otherwise, it's a quite technical question because at times we focus generally on the edible part of mushrooms or their parasitic or disease causing angle or some poisoning angle, which is mentioned in NCERT as well. So there they have said medicinal properties. This you could have easily associated because as we know, even the world's first antibiotic, Penicillium notatum, was a fungi species which acted against bacteria. So similar way, lot of mushrooms and other fungi members have medicinal properties, and lot of Ayush medicines at times are directly or indirectly using it as a source. Then psychoactive properties, just like some drugs, some mushrooms are associated with similar way of like LSD, Aspergillus fungus. So they are having these psychoactive properties as well. For a time they are used once again for medicinal and sometimes for recreational purpose. Then in the third angle, insecticidal properties, this we have discussed in ecology, that how mycorrhiza and some other type of fungi while growing in root, they not only help in absorbing water and nutrients, at times they act against pathogenic fungi as well as some other pests. So this is also an associated benefit. And bioluminescent part is a tricky one because generally the firefly organisms and other some species which produce luciferin are associated with bioluminescence, or like dinoflagellates we see in tides angle. But there are mushrooms which have the similar mechanism and they at night glow, which is quite an exceptional thing for a diversity of species. So once again, the golden rule of all four holds true in this question as well. Now coming to the Indian squirrels part, we all observe squirrel, and the basic image which we have built on that they are just herbivorous species feeding on nuts and some leftovers, but they are omnivorous as well. They, at times they feed on insect and small, you could say, organisms, and they store material like nuts. This one was acceptable. Only the first one, also they live by burrowing in the ground, is also a doable thing. Coming to the 25th question. So once again, it's asking about the microorganisms and their adaptations. So generally the biology is science of exceptions, and in this one question can have a couple or two answers. The first statement you can say that microorganism can grow in environment temperature above the boiling point. The boiling point is considered 100 degrees Celsius, and most of the time it's the preferable mode with most of the microorganisms get killed. But there is class of bacteria which is adapted in the hot springs, archaebacteria, some specific examples which are classified as hyperthermophiles, are surviving even at 105 to 110 degrees. So basically from exception point of view, this statement can be considered. Otherwise, from common parlance, we can say the microorganism generally gets killed as you reach 60 to 80 degrees. Even pasteurization process was built on similar lines. Then the second and third questions are once again their adaptations, which is clearly highlighting that the cryophiles, as well as you could say the acidophile class of microorganisms, they are well adapted to difficult terrains. So more or less UPSC is trying to push the theme that about the diversity as well as their adaptations in trying circumstances, how even the microorganisms can survive in against all odds. So from that angle, most likely the UPSC is going to pick all three as the likely answer of this given question. Now coming to 26th question, which of the following makes a tool with stick to scrap insects from a hole? So basically this question might appear little technical, but it requires just a basic common sense. Like human beings, apes and monkeys have that agile ability to use their forelimbs for using sticks or even some other tools for their advantage. Because all other organisms like fishing, otter, sloth, bear, they are, even though they are mammals, but they don't have that same locomotory or the ability to use such tools. So here you have to understand orangutan is an ape which is found in, you could say, the Malaysia and Indonesia part, in ape which is quite now friendly to human beings. If you have seen the tourism, it is even using the selfie stick to click pictures. So while discussing homologous organs, when we were trying to emphasize the theme that only apes, monkeys have adapted their hand for manipulation, for writing notes and for other activities. Others are using for jumping, hopping, or basic necessities. So basically you have to choose a monkey or a ape. So in given option, only orangutan satisfies this. Now once again, the hydrofluorocarbon, due to Kigali Amendment at Rwanda in 2016, India signed it in 2021 and ratified. So this theme was on expected line, because these are super greenhouse gases. Even though they have been helpful in phasing out the chlorofluorocarbons, yet their use is considered controversial. So out of the given sources, we have to choose that hydrocarbons is being used. So once again, the golden rule of all four holds true, even with aerosols, foam, sprays, fire retardants, lubricant, jet plane emissions, AC. So it has found a use in multiple themes. So once again, you have to choose all of the above as the option. The final question from science environment section is on, once again, community reserve part. Community reserve we had discussed in situ conservation, where we have seen the primary role impetus lies with the community, which is motivated to manage a park or a region for preserving traditional practice, or more specifically to preserve the plants and fauna found there. It's a concept which has evolved in Punjab, and we have seen Lalwan and Keshupur as being the early front runners in community reserve category. So even though the basic management lies with the citizen or the community, still the chief wildlife warden of the state is the governing authority, because we have to maintain data, and state keeps the track record of what kind of themes are being carried out there. Even though it's not to be confused with biosphere reserve, because that's the strictest part of the biodiversity in situ conservation. Now, even though it's a flexible mechanism, hunting in no case is allowed, because we know Wildlife Protection Act clearly has Schedule 1 to deal with such penalties. And even though the people are allowed to carry out their basic activities commercial, including collecting of the non-timber, as well as for grazing, and well as for basic agriculture practice. Whereas in biosphere reserve, these activities are, this is a basic difference between community and biosphere reserve, because this topic community reserve is separate from the conventional national park, sanctuaries, and biosphere. So this was all we had in the discussion of UPSC prelims 2023. So I have given you answers, as well as tried to give you a brief explanation of why or what are the these options were the technically the best options to be picked. Still, if you are unconvinced or you have some doubts about any of the given question, feel free to ask. We will try to get back to you within 24 hours with your genuine queries. So thank you very much. I hope this exam has gone as per your expectation, even though it's a tough exam and cutoff is likely to hover around 85 to 90, still you should stay optimist and hope for a surprise, because even the mains exam is not far away, and you should not waste your time cribbing or just contemplating or introspecting what went wrong. Just focus on your mains preparation. It will help you in along the activities. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.